This is Married at First Sight. Technically, I suppose it's 24, 25, and 26. Divani and Julia-Ruth. But even though I don't feel as though they really gave her that hard a time, if I'm honest, gave Kia and David, like, I guess one of the most successful like pairings that they've had in MAFS history, or something like that. It was some accolade he gave them. I don't like Nelly. He said something like, I feel like every time that we come back from that commitment ceremony, it's all about my homework and what I've got to do. So again, very similar to Ashley in that I'm spent, I'm burnt out. But it's gaslightery to me, because if you were doing these things, yeah, which would naturally come to you if you wanted to do these things because you naturally are interested in this person, nobody would calling out the things that you're failing to do. I've never ever at any point had chocolate covered strawberries at a friend's house for dinner. Never. You couldn't spring for one cheesecake, one M&S eating mess. You know what I mean? Like, so a couple brownies. What the hell are we doing with chocolate covered strawberries, fam? What on people thems? So this is Married at First Sight. Technically, I suppose it's 24, 25, and 26. So I'm going to try and just amalgamate it all together into one and try and keep it within the same kind of like 40-ish minutes. It's going to be difficult because a lot has happened. So 24 was a commitment ceremony. 25 was the wife partner swap activity, and then the third one, the last one we just saw yesterday, was the dinner party. So I think episode 24 with the commitment ceremony, I feel like the main event for that obviously was Divani and Julia-Ruth. But even though I don't feel as though they really gave her that hard a time, if I'm honest. I think they asked questions and gave Divani the floor about what he's learned and stuff, and asked him to really explain how he felt about certain things. And the one thing that I do think came out of it, even though they didn't really hold Julia-Ruth to account, was the fact that I felt that the apology she gave him, I mean, the words were right. Whether she actually meant them or not, who's to say? Because we're not her. But I think in terms of it being a public thing, where because she hadn't really. I know she said that she'd taken accountability privately, but she hadn't done that privately. She hadn't done that publicly. So to hear her actually say the words like, I am sorry for, because the experts were trying to tease it out of her, and she still didn't really say it. But then at the end, when it was kind of like final summary and stuff, she kind of did then say, well, do you know what, like, I am sorry for hurting you, like, I genuinely am sorry for saying these things about you, ridiculing you in front of the group and making you look silly, and stuff, and for any hurt that I've caused you, I'm really genuinely am sorry. And I thought that was really nice for her to do that. I say nice, I mean, it's the bare minimum, but at least she did do that. You know, and then to see Devani just get so emotional when he was speaking to the group, and just thanking them for being so supportive of him and stuff, like, a guy getting emotional will never not make me cry. Like, it just always hits me here, man, because there's not many of us, I think, that are so comfortable to do that still, and particularly from like a West Indian background as well. I think it's just so refreshing to see him in that kind of way, and again to think about where my mindset was at from like week 2 to where it is now for both of them is just crazy. But I think Mel, Charlene, and Paul, I think they could have held Julia-Ruth to account even more for, like, that speech. I still can't get over that speech. That speech to me was the thing that I was just like, you are just not a nice person. Do you know what I mean? You're just not a nice girl. Like, you're just not. My friend, on the other hand, he just like, listen, don't get me wrong, yeah, because he used to think that she was like the fittest as well, but like, yo, she's the one that, like, yo, but even he was like, I'm not saying that I would date her, but in terms of just owning who you are, then if you're gonna get to the point of being like, well, cha, do you know what? Like, I'm just gonna be Ursula.
Life's full of tough choices, isn't it?
Do you know what I mean? Well, in that sense, I suppose that's exactly what she did. So, okay, but I still didn't rate it. Was there anything else that would particularly stand out about the commitment ceremony? Obviously, April not knowing what she's going to do about Leo. So him being like, we've had a great week. It was a bit confronting in certain elements, but actually, we did the kind of things that we needed to do. And her basically not being sure, but still writing stay. And it's funny because again, I feel that from when I first saw April to now, like I've just gone off her. I really have, and for more reasons as we'll see, is like from episode 24, episode 25 and 26, but. I just feel as though, even though there's nothing really, like, I feel as though there's no lights at home when talking to Leo. And what's interesting is that, like, when you see some of the other people talk about him, they all talk about what a nice guy he is, which is great. Um, but I also feel as though that, like, nice, like, there are so many non-nice people in the world. Yeah, so when you find a nice person, that's great. But I don't think it's just okay just to be nice, because if there's no compatibility with your niceness, aside from the fact that you're a nice person, like, what keeps me again emotionally engaged with you? Like, you're nice, but like, are you my person? Are you my nice? Are you my person? And I don't think there's anything wrong with her not having those feelings if she doesn't feel as though they're getting met by him. But I just kind of feel like, I don't know. I just feel like there should be, like, he shouldn't be as oblivious as he is. And as I said, I don't know whether he's choosing to be obtuse, or whether, you know, she's not making it really super duper clear. Yeah, that, like, things are going south, mate. But then I'm also like, listening to her being like, I don't know. That would be enough for me to go, she doesn't know. Like, what? So yeah, that was. As I said, I mean, they decided to stay anyway. Um, Liam and Lee were good on the couch, and the fact that things are moving forward. Trying to think who else has had anything to say on the couch. I know that Paul pressed Abigail and John to be like, "What's stopping you from saying I love you and stuff?" Which I thought was fair, because at one point I did think, "Why are you pressing them, man? Like, let them say it whenever they're ready." But I can understand why he was trying to say, "Look, I want to see if your apprehensions are based on something real." That was cool. He gave Kia and David, like, I think the most secure, or the most, like the most, I guess, one of the most successful, like, pairings that they've had in MAFS history, or something like that. It was some accolade he gave them. And it's like, I wanted to wait and see if it was real. It's like, I can see that it's real, because even the way that you hold each other, the way you speak about each other, like, it started here, and it's just stayed that way the whole time. So yeah, man, and I can't believe there was part of me that didn't really rate Kia before, um because he is such a vibrantly, enthusiastically, like, just joyous person. And, like, within his own relationship, he shows up and makes sure that David knows exactly who he is, as David does for Kia. But he does the same for other people. What they both do. They're just people that I just feel like it'd be great to know them. So yeah, I'm a big fan of both of them. Rebecca and Bailey are good. I can't remember there being anything specific about them two from the retreat, aside from, them growing closer, and then being the kind of people that were so secure that they were able to kind of give advice to other people. Grace and Ashley, like, they obviously had hit rock bottom, and but the experts were able to help them. So I'm sure I'm the same as everybody else, where with Grace and Ashley, it's been kind of like it's just been this the whole time. Because I don't know if you're like me, but, like, initially I was like, I don't like this girl. I'm sorry. I think she's a bit much. Yeah, I think she's putting a lot on Ashley. But then hearing, like, different sides of how things can be read and how things can be interpreted, I'm like, actually, do you know what? Maybe Ashley, you are maybe not getting things as right as you think you are. And her feelings are valid. But then again, like, there are certain instances I'm like, I don't really know how I feel about it. I don't know how I would be in that situation either. But listening to um how how they are, and how they get to these instances, and the D head comment and stuff, and, like, Mel's like, you're in point scoring mode. And as someone that likes to be right, yeah, I can completely relate to not really wanting to back down, particularly if I'm indignant about my point. And sometimes you can lose sight of the person when you're trying to prove that you're right. But then sometimes it's harder to try and negotiate that, because if I, I guess it's like any relationship, isn't it? I mean, you have to have some level of contrition, and sometimes you have to be willing to concede that, even if maybe you feel right in that scenario, for the greater good, like having to just step back and say, well, maybe I didn't read that right. And actually, what's more important? Is it more important for you to be right, or is it more important for you to acknowledge the person that you're with and the feelings that they have? And I think that's where they're coming across, because I said to my mum and to my friend, I was like, I feel like the two things are kind of this, two things can exist at the same time. But I think for them, for those two, I think that's exactly what's happening. I think she's explaining that the things that you're saying, yeah, I leave it. Like, I'm not saying that she's not over analytical. I think she is over analytical, but I think that some of the things that she's saying, quite rightly, is like, I'm not really feeling that, mate. And how you think it's landing is not landing with me very well. So, I'm letting you know that that's not cool. And because in his head, he's like, well, these are jokes that I've always told. These are ways I've always treated women, and people always seem to love me for it. Like, I don't see what your problem is. And actually, because you keep looking for something bad, you're turning the things that I'm doing into something bad. And actually, like, I'm not doing anything bad. But yeah, I'm trying to change for you, and I'm doing all these things for you. So when there's yet another thing, it's almost like I'm just fatigued. I'm fatigued of hearing you say something that I need to do. It's probably a bit how Stephen feels, but again, quite rightly, Nelly's called out bad behavior. So I think it's like, it doesn't really matter what Grace might say, because ultimately, if she picks up on another thing where he feels like he's got to change for her, he's like, I'm not doing no more changing. I've done enough changing for you. If you want this to work, what about you change? And it's like this butting of head, and it's so impossible, because if she doesn't say something, she'll end up becoming resentful. Like, because in my head, especially later on, I was just, I didn't really get what happened in partner swap, or just before partner swap. I didn't really get it. I was like, mm, okay, Grace, I'm not really feeling that, mate, because obviously he's complimenting you. But when she explained it, I was like, I completely get why she would have felt that way. And ultimately, he's at the point where he's just like, I'm so fed up having to watch my P's and my Q's. But again, these are the things that are coming out of your mouth. And if the person that you're with is your priority, then you will, like, try and tailor that to make sure that you're not causing that level of offense. That's, I don't know. So it's a really real hard one, and I think, like, watching them as the episodes went on, it was just such a shame to see two people that clearly like each other that just cannot get on the same page. It's just so hard. Um, who else? Yeah, Leisha and Reese are good. Like, everyone else is pretty much good. There's no one else that's going into danger mode aside from Nelly and Steven, where he's basically put, um, I'm gonna stay for now. And I think that completely threw Nelly, and I think it threw me a little bit as well, because I'm just like, well, why would you even add the for now part? Like, because that straight away tells me that you are not in this, and it doesn't give me any confidence. So why would you put that? Um, and I think, like, as this then goes into the partner swap, it's just so evident, yeah, that Steven just doesn't like Nelly. And again, I'm not in his head, yeah, I don't know him personally, but just from what I've seen on this show and what I know of what I'm like and what my friends can be like when they like someone and when they don't like someone, it's really evident. It's evident how you approach certain things. It's evident how you instigate certain things, good or bad, and how you talk about them to other people, good or bad. Like, you don't like Nelly. You might like her as a person, as another person that's in this competition, and think, I've got to show a little bit of respect, maybe. But in terms of liking her in a romantic sense, whatever it was that you maybe saw initially, whether you've looked at her and gone, whoa, you've got too much that you need from me to fix. Yeah, because he said something like, I feel like every time that we come back from that commitment ceremony, it's all about my homework and what I've got to do. So again, very similar to Ashley in that I'm spent, I'm burnt out. But this, it's almost like it's gaslightery to me, because if you were doing these things, yeah, which would naturally come to you if you wanted to do these things because you naturally are interested in this person, nobody would be calling out the things that you're failing to do, when you're not showing up, when you're speaking to someone disrespectfully, when you're giving so much space and withdrawing from someone. Like, these are all the things that would make someone who has an anxious attachment style, or someone that's a little bit needy, it would make someone go a little bit like, oh, and they need that from you. Because ultimately, if you don't want the person and you feel as though this ain't going nowhere, allow it then. Put leave. let her know from early that you're like, I'm looking to check out. Don't put like stay for now. And be like, this is make, and basically I'm here for one more week. It's make or break. And this is what I don't even understand. I don't understand even further is if it's make or break, you put leave for now. They've had the horrendous week that they've had, and he's ended up in the family swap week, the family staying. How does that even make sense? So anyway, so you've got the commitment ceremony, that's all done. So Maeve's gone as well. Joel's written a letter. Joel wrote her a letter and was like, yeah, cool. And again, this is an issue that me and my friend have had so many conversations about, yeah, because and I explained it in my last one, so I'm not going to go over it again. But I think for him, he thinks that like Joe was calculated from the beginning, like, and that he love bombed her, like, gaslit her, treated her terribly, and it's kind of relied on the fact that people are gonna call her out for being quite loud and brash, and actually she's had like quite a hard edit. As I said, I feel as though that like she contributed somewhat to the downfall of the relationship because everybody does. Everybody has a contribution to make. But I do think that like in the latter part from when he left, that the blame of the failure really lies with him. I don't know how I feel about the letter because my mate was like he could have delivered that to her in person. He's written what he said, but I still thought it was quite cruel. I still kind of stand by the fact that she didn't need any closure because the disrespect is the closure. If someone can stand up in your face and be like, I don't care, like I don't care enough to come to this thing, I don't care enough to face the music from probably a lot of judgment you're probably going to get, like all of that. If someone doesn't rate you enough to put themselves through a little bit of hardship in order to maybe give you what you may need, to me that is disrespectful anyway, and that closure is that. Um, so then I kind of don't know whether I think she needed the letter, and I don't know whether she took anything from it because as soon as Mel asked her how she felt about it, she was just like, "Well, it's crap in it." So I don't know whether she took much from the letter, and I don't know whether she's at the point where she would even care because you've already told people and me in front of everyone that you love me, and then in the next couple of breaths and weeks, whatever, you didn't, and that's going to make it harder for her then to trust someone moving forward. As to when they do say those words, it means nothing because in a few weeks' time, you could completely change your mind again. And what's worse this time is that you've told me when I've eventually let my guard down with you in front of like everybody, the world. So I don't know whether the letter, like, it might have made him feel better to know that I've done something, and that maybe he's given her something. But I don't know whether, in actual fact, yeah, I don't know whether I think it was actually beneficial to her, and whether or not I think it writes anything. I don't think it does, personally. I don't think it does. So then it goes to the partner swap. So you've got Reese that swaps into Grace's apartment. Ashley's gone over to Abigail's apartment. John has gone over to Kia. Lee has gone over to David. April's gone over to Stephen. Nellie's gone over to Bailey. Rebecca's gone over to Leo. Leah's gone over to Leisha. I think that's everybody. So, all in all, I think it was a fairly illuminating partner swap. I think everybody kind of got a little bit of something. So whether it was, I mean, how cute was like John and Kia? I mean, took him wine tasting. They had breakfast together and stuff. Like it was just, and he's clearly come out, being like, I've got a great friendship with Kia now. And I guess spending that time with Kia allowed him to be like, I'm gonna tell Abigail I love her and stuff, which is really cool. Abigail is just the sweetest person because obviously Grace and Ashley have had that bust up about him wanting to basically get on down the night, and she, which I thought was really, I'm still quite surprised that the show aired the bit about like. I mean, it feels even weird even saying it. I mean, I'm just like, I feel that that's much information that we didn't need to know. But about the shut up. So he's basically trying to like instigate that. And she's just like, nah, I'm on the way to the gym. And she's because he's like on it. She's like, what has gotten into you? Like, and he's like, well, I've got half naked woman in front of me, like with a great body. What are you expecting? And she was like, and that's from her interpretation. And she was like, that was it didn't land well and she didn't like it. And then he was like, it was a compliment I was giving you. How can you take that compliment and like make it into something else? Now, initially, when I heard this, I was like, come on, Grace. Like, are you being serious? Like, you've now got to the point where you guys are actually being intimate. Like, he's, like telling you you're his missus, like, and that's the kind of chat that you would expect to hear from your partner, I would imagine. Like, it's the kind of chat that I've given and heard and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, why would you take that offensively and automatically assume that like he clearly would want that with anybody else if they were bent over? Like, I don't get that at all. And I could understand why he'd be like, I am just so fed up of yet again there being something else that I've said, yeah, that's made you go, blah. And to be honest, I felt that even before I heard his interpretation, when I heard her interpretation of it, before she explained it to other people, I was just a bit like, but why would you automatically assume that he means that when you know already that he's here for you? Like, despite everything else that you guys have gone through, why would you assume that that's what he means? Like, so when he was like, if you knew me, you would know that's not what I meant, and you would know already to kind of take it as that. And her response is to say, well, actually, it shouldn't be for me to interpret that you didn't mean that. How about you just don't say those things, so I don't have to interpret it? So when they're going to the partner swap thing, they're going off on bad terms. And when Abigail like sees him and stuff, she's very keen to kind of like bring his mood up and stuff, and I guess his time with her, and just because she put on a great meal, like they had some bants and stuff, and I guess just good times. He spent the time really just getting back to him. So Grace has said, look, when you go over there, do some reflecting and just see what is the reason I could possibly have thought what it is that I thought. But I did think though, I was like, as much as you're saying that you don't think it's fair that he thinks that everything, that he should think that everything is your fault, I think it's also fair that you shouldn't also think that everything is his fault. So you're telling him to go back and reflect. Like, are you reflecting as to why you reacted to that in that way, and why you didn't take it in the sense of, but it's Ashley, and I know that he wouldn't have meant it to sound like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, because in my head, I just like the irony of you saying that like not everything is your fault. I was like, well, not everything is his fault either. And from the edit that I've seen, it's constantly him saying things that you're then having to correct. And like I said earlier, I feel sometimes those things just become a white noise. People stop listening because it's just that. It's another thing. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that excuses bad behavior, because it doesn't. But I do think it gets to the point where if you know that your heart is good and that you're doing things from a great place, it's completely justifiable that you'd be like, I don't even want to hear anymore, to be honest. And I think that's what he got to when he went over there. I think he got to the point of being like, I'm saturated with the Grace isms, and I'm done. So I was kind of like in his camp, to be fair, pretty much the whole way. And I think the way it's been edited as well, that Abigail's got this, with all the pink theme and the Lebanese and all that kind of stuff, they're having a great time. And then every time it cuts back to Grace and Reese, it's all this very morose, and the piece of rap that they're making, and he's reading the feminist book, and it's like it's all just very heavy, and I don't know, man. I can kind of understand why that wouldn't feel like appealing, like in a way. Exactly the same way as when April got into Stevens, and I'll be honest, that whole just watching them just made me so angry. Not angry in the sense of like I actually care, but just whilst watching this, being just like I just don't like either one of you. Like, to know that before Nelly left, like they set certain ground rules and stuff. So Leo was like, I'm not comfortable you sleeping in the bed with Steven. And Nelly said the same thing about him sleeping in the bed with April. And like no flirting, fun, but no flirting. And they'd obviously had a conversation beforehand, Nelly and Steven, about the commitment ceremony, and her being kind of blindsided by him basically saying that like, in a week's time, I'm off skis. And he did nothing to really reassure her, aside from saying just like, well, we're not in a great place, to be honest, and probably the worst place we've been in the whole time. And, the things that you're asking for, I can't give you. I ain't sticking around. So then when April comes in with her energy, like, and it's just bants, they're having laughs. You know, it gets to the point where, you know, she's making dinner for him, like they're, you know, there's a little bit of pillow fight on the sofa, and stuff that, you know, they're basically getting on, and like he's flirting, like, and he's like, you know, I'm a natural flirt. These are things that I do, and these are things that I should be doing with Nelly, but I'm not. And it's like, well, it's obvious the reason you're not doing them with Nelly and why you can do it with April, because April you may find attractive in a different way. Do you know what I mean? Like, who knows? I don't even know whether the attraction is even really deeply there for him, like, and Nelly. To be honest, I just don't know. Because again, the way he can easily talk to her as someone that is meant to be his significant partner in this, I think is shocking. So yeah, of course you can sit down there and have bolognese made for you and have a laugh and guffaw and go and do like belly dancing in, you know, the other people's apartments stuff. Why have you never thought to do that before? Why have you never thought to have people over, or to, you know, to take her out, or, you know, to try and create the fun that you're saying that you can get with everybody else? Like, I get it. And I did say that I'm not going to put it all on him, because sometimes Nelly doesn't make it easy because everything she's been through. But even if you park what she's been through, how he's treated her through this would make anyone be like, I don't know where you stand. I'm a bit paranoid now. You've disrespected me. Like, you've left me on my own. Like, you're not really putting me first. You've just put that you're going to stay for now in front of everybody. You've not even spoken to me about it. Like, so everything that you're showing me is telling me that you're not interested. Even when I've told you that I like you more than you like me, you've confirmed it for me. It's like, put the girl out of her misery, because the way you're treating her now is like every guy that I know in my personal life here that's got to a point where they're done with the girl that they're with, and rather than them turn around and be like, oh, I'm gonna end it with you, they just treat them terribly, consciously or not, and wait for them to kind of be like, you know what, I deserve more than this, I'm gonna go, so they don't have to feel the guilt of it all. And I just think it's really pathetic. And it would, you know, I would respect him a lot more if he'd said, you know what, looking at the last few weeks, I can pretty much say that we this ain't gonna work. This ain't gonna work, you know. But he hasn't done that. He said he's given the example of him and April, and how, you know, the energy's up here and stuff, and everything's great, and he hasn't got that with Nelly. And it's like, but you haven't got it with her because you don't want it with her, so you're treating her like crap. Um, and kind of the same with Leo, like, and April, because she's like, oh, you know, it's just so easy to talk to Steven. Like, it's just like I can talk to him, and that's what I should be getting with my partner, but I'm not. But again, I'm just like, what if you're not getting it? Like, make it clear and put leave. Because again, as I keep saying, if you've had weeks and weeks and weeks of this now, yeah, and nothing is altered, what is a week gonna change if it's the same thing? This is not like he needs to open up more. This is just his personality. And if you got like the basics of being able to talk to someone when it's just you two, like, I'm just like, man, the two of you. So, you know, they have a great night. He takes these photos, puts it on the fridge. So when Nelly comes in the next day, and she's like, because she's had a great time with Bailey. Bailey's treated her like a queen, you know, the same kind of things she does for Beck, and just really kind of poured back into her cup. So she's come back in now being just like, yep, I know what I want, I know what I need. And I did think, I'm like, you know, he's been on a high with April, yeah, because he hasn't had to think about all the things that he's lacking in what he's not doing for Nelly. And again, it's so cyclical because you're not doing these things but you don't want to. So you're gonna get picked up on them because people are gonna like, well, why aren't you doing these things for her? And rather than say it's because I don't want to, I don't like her like that. There's all these other reasons and all these other things you're giving, so it makes you look like an absolute a-hole. So he's on this high of not having to think about any of that. Nelly's come back as the reminder of all the things that he's not doing, and therefore all the critique he's getting. So straight away the mood kind of comes down. And as she's talking about how great the whole Bailey thing was, he's talking about how great the April thing was. It's almost like a tit for tat. Like, yeah, you're right. Like, I had a great time. Laughs aplenty. Do you know what I mean? Cooked me. He cooked her breakfast. When April asked him like, oh, you ever made Nelly breakfast? No. And I was like, you disrespectful cretin. How are you going to sit down there, yeah, with some next woman in the bed that you and your supposed wife sleep in, yeah, with your poached eggs and your avocado, which is a lovely breakfast minus the leaking yolk, and have the gall to be like, I've never made this for Nelly. And equally, April's never cooked for Leo either. So this is what I'm saying. Like, people do what they want to do for the people they want to do them for. Like, and I'll be damned if I'm ever gonna sit here and be like, I want you to do this for me. I want you to do that. Like, if you ain't already doing it because you want to, yeah, not a problem. Because if you wanted to, you would. And it's always the case. The ones who want to will. Dean was up there giving up rap battle, yeah, as whack as it was, but he was up there doing it because he wanted to. And you know what, as well, what I will say about that whole if you wanted to and not being attracted to them or whatever, as much as Sarah may have said some things in the beginning that were really not fair and really quite cruel, in the main, yeah, in the main, she did try. Like, whether it was because she wanted to save public face, whether she, whatever it was, she at least did try. She tried to do those things with Dean, and in the end, it was just a case of, look, I'm just not that into you. And the experts had to really like lay it onto, like, guys, you need to allow this man because obviously it ain't going nowhere. And I look at Nelly sometimes and I just think it's just such a shame. And I wonder whether or not, like, he's ever going to look back on this time and go, do you know what? Like, I could have, because Nelly isn't a bad person. She's been hurt, yes. She's hopeful, yeah. She's probably hurting because she's like, this started off so well, and she can't even really explain as to why he's being so cold with her. Um, and it's just sad to see that you can have all that joy and all that spirit for someone that isn't your wife and all these other people, and yet the person that wants something with you, you can be that cold with them. And ultimately, like, if you don't want to be with them, just say that and put them out their misery then. But to watch her, like, almost come in and be like, so this is what I deserve, this is what I need, hoping that either something would resonate from what April had said to him. So you're like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. Or the fact that she's come back with this new confidence, whatever. And he just doesn't care. It just does not. It does not give one. It's heartbreaking. So yeah, Rebecca spends time with Leo, and basically she tells him that, like, April doesn't miss you when you're not around, mate. So all the stuff that you're doing, paying for all these meals, you do everything in the yard, like, you're doing the most for this girl of your dreams, and April basically doesn't even miss you when you're not here. So I actually went back to go and watch it, because when he got back to the apartment and told her that, April, she was like, I can't believe that's the way it's been misconstrued, it's been taken out of context, like, I didn't answer. And I was like, I'm sure when I watched that clip, I got a definitive answer that you do not miss him. Because Rebecca asked her, so do you miss him when he's not there? You're at girls' day, like, when he's not around, you miss him. Are you excited to see him when you do see him? And there's just pure silence. So yeah, I guess she was right in saying that she didn't technically answer the question, but you also didn't say yes. So to me, the silence is not, it's not a hard question if you miss someone or you don't. And when you're saying that there's no emotional connection, things are going downhill for you. Like you're acting like Rebecca's told him something that is completely untrue. And I get why you might be frustrated, because he should be able to pick up on the fact that you're not happy. That's fair. But when she was like, it's been taken out of context, and I'm just like, you're just a bit shamed because you've been kind of called out for not being honest, because you don't want to hurt his feelings. But stringing someone along, giving them hope, is far worse, in my opinion. And I'll tell you who I've changed my opinion of as well. Leah. I've changed my opinion of Leah, and I've changed my opinion because I feel as though my friend had said, when I was kind of calling Lee Count Doom, and he was like, oh, I think Leah's playing games and stuff. I was like, nah, like, she's cool, like, it's Lee who's the problem. But to know that you've made leaps and bounds with Lee, like, the stuff that you said you wanted, the stuff you're now getting, like, from her, the minute you get paired up with Leisha and you're going on, like, some kind of, I don't know, like, someone giving you free tickets to Disney World, the Florida version, do you know what I mean, at Christmas, all expenses paid, with Beyonce headlining. Like, I'm like, why are you going on so extra with all that? Really? What's all that about? Like, I'd be fuming as well. Like, and I get it. There's like levels of jokes and stuff, but if you know that someone has got certain boundaries to something, yeah, and they've made it quite clear what those boundaries are, Like, particularly when you've made such strides in building that trust, why would you ever take the mick with that from the beginning? So from the beginning, I didn't like how she was handling that information. But then when she actually went to do the swap, and it was all about, I mean, not all, from the edit we've seen, just so excited, and I couldn't wait, and because on the outside she's my type of person, like, gets up early, spontaneous, fun, and they're talking about, and Alicia's asking what her types are and stuff, and she's basically describing her to a T, to the point they have this like little giggle and stuff, point where they're having chocolate covered strawberries. I'm sorry. Yeah. Do you know how many like eateries that I've been to and had that? Never. You know how many of my friends' houses I've been to and they've put that on the menu like as an after dinner aperitif? Never. I've never ever at any point had chocolate covered strawberries at a friend's house for dinner. Never. You couldn't spring for one cheesecake, one M&S eating mess. You know what I mean? Like, so a couple brownies. What the hell are we doing with chocolate covered strawberries, fam? So either the producers knew what they were doing, or you're feeding into something that's going to feed into someone else's insecurities. And what for? Didn't rate that. And then the next day, when they've gone out and Leisha's taken her out and stuff, they've gone for bottomless brunch and got absolutely like battered. And they're playing Never Have I Ever. And one of the questions is like, have you ever like had a kiss with the same sex and stuff? Which obviously, you basically said that you find her fit and stuff, and Leisha's like, yeah, I have kissed a girl before, and she's like, oh, so let's get another drink then. And it's like, I get that it's kind of bants and stuff, but these are the kind of bants that that your partner is not going to enjoy. So you've got a choice to make. You either be the joker of the pack and be authentically yourself, and maybe find someone else that will find those kind of jokes funny. Because to me, I don't think I'd be as bent out of shape as Lee was. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like if it was another lesbian, for example, someone else that was a threat to my relationship, then maybe I might be like, oh, I don't know how comfortable I am. But still, I trust you. But I still wouldn't. I don't think anybody would feel comfortable with somebody openly flirting like that with their partner. I just don't. So I think Leah has been like dishonest, because when she came back and told Lee, she was like, "There's been no flirting." Like, she couldn't even remember what happened, and even bumping into Lee. That's how mash up you were. And then Leisha is texting Lee off your phone, and you don't even remember. And Lee's telling you that, like, I just was like, "What the hell is this about?" And you're trying to be like, "Well, that's kind of cute." Like, and Lee's like, "I didn't even bother responding." And she's like, "Well, that's a bit rude." And she's seeing it as like a Spanish Inquisition, like I'm getting questioned by this person. But I'm like, but everything from the way you left to what you actually did when you were out there would, to me, denote having some kind of inquisition. And to be honest, your answers aren't sufficient. So yeah, my opinion's changed on Leah, and it's a shame because I've liked Leah the whole time. And even if she's like changed her opinion in terms of like whether she wants to do the whole thing with Lee or not, that's fine. She's well within her rights to do that. But in that particular moment, you've not voiced that with Lee. You're still in this with her. She's told you what her boundaries are, and you just overstepped them, left, right, and centre with someone that she already felt a bit insecure about. So, yeah, not a fan of that. Rated the fact that David took Lee out to Ann Summers or whatever to go and get some stuff. And I think that's what made it worse. The fact that Lee was like, yeah, I want to spice it up. I want to give her some stuff that like I've not been giving her previously. And it's like, she's doing all that, and you're out here talking about, I kissed a girl and I liked it, and cherry popstick, whatever the words are. Then after all that, John comes back and tells Abigail he loves her, which like is amazing. Like, I literally love them. I think Abigail is probably one of those people, and I think every friendship group's probably got one who just one. In fact, John the same. Just the sweetest people. Just really lovely. Do anything for anyone at any time. Like, almost innocent in how kind they are. Like, just lovely, lovely people. I really rate those two. He's come back, said I love you. She said it back. Absolute moment. Loved that. Yeah, Kieran and David were happy to be back together. Rebecca and Bailey happy to be back together. Bailey wrote her a card. It's this really beautiful card, and this, oh mate, it was beautiful, really, really sweet. Reese and Alicia were happy to be back together as well, which I didn't think I'd ever see. Man's coming with the flower in his mouth and everything, and that's been a real turnaround for me because I wasn't expecting that from them two at all. Already mentioned April and Leo, and them kind of not being in a great place. But I think, and obviously Nelly and Stephen as well, and to the point where Stephen actually ends up sleeping on the sofa. And then Grace and Ashley, he comes back. He hadn't done no work. I ain't looked at nothing. I still feel the same way. If you knew me, you would not be asking me nothing, basically. And she's just like, so you haven't gone and done anything that I've asked you to do. And he's like, I just think I need some time away. So he sleeps in another apartment. And she's just like, I'm fed up of this. I'm fed up of feeling like, you know, he's trying to work out whether he wants to be with me. Like, I feel like calling his bluff and just essing out. So that's when that ends. So episode 26 is the dinner party. And yeah, so you got John and Abigail that come in first. They're like, oh, it's a big night for us. Like, they're going to announce that, they told each other they love each other and stuff. I can't remember the orders that people came in. I think it was Kieran David. So Kieran David coming after John and Abigail, and they tell them about the love thing. And Kier's it's just a cheerleader, man. Like, and I love the fact that experts are like Kieran David, literally, like, they even walk in sync, like, they even walk the same. So they come in together. So then recently she come in again, very strong. Then Grace comes in on her own. She explains what's going on with her and Ashley, which is really sad. Then Nelly comes in. I think no. Then April and Leo come in, and again, kind of coming strong, but then kind of separate instantly. And she's looking like, ugh. And I think like she's got a lot on her head because she's, as I said, she was saying that like it's been taken out of context and wants to speak to Rebecca. We see experts are like, this doesn't seem like they're on the same page here. Then Nelly and Stephen come in. Again, very separate entrances, really. Sit separately. And Nelly's just recounting how she feels, and she's like, I just feel like I got my energy back, and it's about me, and we're not in a great place, basically. Because again, he slept separately, in the bed in the living room. And it's funny actually because even before they come to the dinner party, I was like, how they're sat and how she's like looking at him is with like such defiance. Like, there's so much beef there. And I don't know, like, he seems like a stubborn guy that's just like, you ain't telling me nothing, mate. Like, you think I'm bothered? That's the kind of vibe I get from him. It's like, you're gonna try and call me out my name, mate? I will sleep on that sofa every single day and feel no way. So when someone's asking him like, oh, do you? I think it's Abigail, and she's like, so do you see yourself with her? Like, and he's just like, to be honest, it's not an answer I can even determine. And she's like, but why are you not able to determine? He's like, well, I just don't think I know her well enough. I can't say that if I don't know you well enough. And she's like, yeah, but how can you not know her well enough? It's been weeks. And even the experts are like, this is such a cop out. It's such a cop out. You cannot say this is the penultimate dinner party and you're trying to turn around and say that you don't know whether you know this person or not. When in reality, what he should be saying is, I know her well enough to know that like she's not my person or I'm not her person. But he's not saying that. Like, and then Ashley comes in. It's awkward for everybody, particularly Grace. And like I said, she then tells the other people around like the story of what happened. Just before Ashley comes in, and obviously she mentions about which just again, I can't believe they didn't edit out the thrush thing. I was like, don't need to know that, but okay. And then as she's explaining like to Abigail about how it left her feeling not being able to see him explain or reflect or any of that, and hoping that's what he would do when he went there, and he didn't, and that she was sat down there worried about him. It was just like another kind of slap in the face. Really, and Abigail gets upset. She's like, "I'm sorry, I didn't want to contribute to this," and that was a real shame. But you can see that everyone's just trying to help her. Everyone's trying to kind of pitch in. Then Leah and Lee come in. Again, tense. Lee's explaining a little bit as to how things have been, because obviously Leah feels like she's in the doghouse a little bit, but Leah's also explaining to not Leisha, maybe Rebecca, and saying that, I just think I might, no, David, that I think basically, I think she's kind of checked out. She's realised that like she couldn't live like that every day, having someone that doesn't trust her, and and it's like, but I don't take that away from her. I think she has been very patient, but I think trying to pin it on what Lee, or how Lee was that morning, I think is unfair because you've given her reason to question you, whether or not you think you should have done or not. Like, she set out a set of boundaries that are not for her. You've literally brunched all over him. Yeah, Rebecca and Bailey come in there really good. And I think the rest of the dinner party, to be honest, is all just it's centered a lot around Ashley and Grace. And it's such a shame because I think, again, everyone's just so invested in both of them. And everyone's trying to give them advice and stuff. I feel so bad for Nelly and Stephen. Well, not really Stephen, but for Nelly, because again, she's kind of, she's realizing that this is coming to an end. Like, do you know what I mean? She's like, this is like a breakup. I feel like it's coming to an end. And all the time that she's getting emotional and crying and stuff, Stephen doesn't at any point console her. Like, and it's just like, how can someone be so cold? Like, I get that you don't want to give her the wrong impression if you don't want anything further with her. But then how on earth are you then at family stay? Like, I just cannot fathom that at all. Don't get that at all. So yeah, she's crying about it, and she's seeing how much love there is around the room when John does his speech and stuff about Abigail and like the love that they've got for each other and stuff, and then watching Rebecca and Bailey, and Lisa, even Lisa and Reese, like, they're all loved up and stuff. It's really sweet to see so much love going around that table. And it's such a contrast to see how much there isn't happening between Stephen and her. I think April and Leo in a similar boat. Rebecca speaks to April, and she makes no bones about what she saw. And even though April's like taken out of context, she had no mouth for it, because ultimately what I've seen is that you're not really into this, and he is far more into this than you are, and he's gonna get himself hurt. He's going to get himself hurt if he continues, and I did feel bad for him because I think until they'd had that conversation jointly with Rebecca, I think April was still trying to make him feel bad for like painting her out to be the bad guy or something. But it's like, anyone that doesn't like someone as much as the other person likes you is automatically going to be the bad guy, because that person is almost innocent. It's unrequited love, isn't it? And she would have done better to have been just like, I need to tell you now that, like, I'm not in a good headspace. Now, he has to take some responsibility for just not hearing her and just listening to what he wants to hear, because she has made it clear from the get-go that I need more from you. I need more. Like, I don't need you to be buying this, I don't need you to be buying that. I need more from you. So when he's talking to people about him, the dishes and that kind of stuff, like, yeah, I get all of that. That's fine and that's great. She should be pulling her weight more. But that attraction, like she said, is dimming because I'm not getting from you what I need connectively wise. Like, so I did feel for him in that regard. There were 3 couples though. Oh, Kira David as well. So all the love around the table, and then I think it gets to the point where Ashley and Grace are talking, and it kind of all heats up a little bit. They're talking about it around the table. Ends up him kind of storming off, and they basically say that, like, they're both done. But I can tell that Grace isn't done. I can tell that she doesn't want to be done with him. I think her feelings for him are actually quite deep. I think they're deeper than what she's probably even letting show. Because she was like, when someone asked her the question of, are you willing to? Because I think he was like, oh, with 2 different pages, and in different books. And Leah was like, do you think that you are open enough to, like, let the book continue? And Grace was like, no, like, I can't go on like this. And then he said the same, which the experts were really shocked by. When he went out and it was like all these boys were around him and stuff, and then Grace was like, oh, can I sit there? And she's rubbing him, and she's like, can I put my arms around him and stuff? And he's like, I didn't think it would end like, I didn't want it to end like this. And she's like, but it doesn't need to end. And he's like, but I just cannot see a way that it can't do. And they both kind of come to this conclusion that, like, it's over, basically. And it was just really like this episode. I did get a little bit like emotional. Like it's just really sad because I think there's, you know, I think there's probably a lot of people out there that can probably relate to, like, if someone is a complete a-hole like my ex was, it makes it far easier to go your separate ways and not even look twice and be like, oh, did I do the right thing? Why did it not come like 3 years sooner? Do you know what I mean? But I think when there isn't something that is specifically the communication is what's wrong, but it's not that you are a bad person or I'm a bad person. It's just that we cannot get on the same page, and this is tearing my hair out. It's so sad. And I think watching that as a viewer anyway, was was a real shame. It was a real shame. So I think the 3 episodes I've seen so far, like, have been really sad. I the clip that we see for the next one, for the family stays, we see April going to Leo's homestay, I think. We see Abigail going to John's homestay, and then we see Stephen going to Nellie's homestay. I'm just again, John happy, Wales, Abigail, everyone loves her. Chris, it looks like, I kind of like the fact that whoever Leo's people are, they're just like, she ain't perfect, mate. Do you know what I mean? Like, so, what you doing, basically. And then Nellie's, it looks like there's some revelation that Nellie's family reads out to Nellie. So this could be the fact that he had a girlfriend prior, or something else has gone on. So there's obviously something that's come out, and Nellie's family is letting him have it. And they're like, why have you wasted her time? Why have you come on here to waste her time? And it ends up with him storming out, effing and blinding yet again. And it's just like, you don't want to be painted at, like, it's quite clear, because for someone that is not bothered about other people's opinions, yeah, he does seem to get quite heads up about them quite often. So whether it's the rest of the people, whether it's the experts, whether it's the family, friends, whatever. So if you're that bothered about people's opinions, A, why have you come on a public TV show, number one, where everyone's going to be chatting out your name? Number two, why have you treated someone like that when you didn't need to? And three, if you don't like this person, why have you not just left already? Like, how the hell have you got yourself to family stay? Like, it just makes no sense to me. You said you only had a week left. You cannot tell me this was a positive week. You cannot tell me that, like, after you put the picture up on the fridge and all the fun that you had in April, you can't tell me that you suddenly decided that, oh, you're the one I want to have fun with. You had Nelly sat down there crying her eyes out next to you, and not once you put your hand over, arm around, how Grace went after Ashley to be like, are you okay? And I get it, and I get that Nelly's a lot, I do, but it should be one or two options. If you can't handle her, yeah, allow it and make her go and find somebody else. Or two, if you can and you want to, actually step up and show up, and then not get resentful that people tell you these are things you need to do to show up. Just do them, or just shut up about it and leave. Do you know what I mean? I just don't understand it. So I can't wait to find out what they're gonna pin him down with. I'm like, yo, what did you do? But yeah, I'd love to know what you guys thought of this. Like, what do you make of Ashley and Grace? Like, are you as heartbroken as I was about it? Do you see there being any hope for Nelly and Steven whatsoever? Likewise with April and Leo, is there any light at the end of the tunnel? And I guess we can start to think now of the couples that are doing well. Do we think that they will commit at the end? Because we're coming down to the end soon. Because I can't imagine, like, I feel like Abigail and John are going to be the kind of couple where they're going to have kids after this. And, like, I don't want to get my hopes up too much, but, like, yeah. Rebecca and Bailey, I'm really hopeful for. But my friend did say that one of his red flags would be the fact that, she got to this point with someone before and left. So that is a good point. And Kieran David, I can't see them breaking up for anything. Even though I know what gay couples can be like from time to time. So I don't know, but yeah, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. If you did enjoy this reaction, then please do drop me a like and subscribe. That'd be great. Thank you very much. And if you do want access to my reactions before they come to YouTube, then please do head over to my Patreon, which is a great way to help support the channel, and it's a great way to connect with me more as well. But for now, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one.